Hello and welcome to KramerTALK. Hope everybody's doing well. We're here with a special guest today, and I'm really excited about it. You know, the focus of this Kramer Talk is not on product announcements, which I've talked about. It's all about the people, the experiences. We can learn from these people, which is what we want to do, and industry insights that help organizations and how we navigate through all the things that are going on in the world from a technology perspective. But I'm so excited to welcome my father, Ron Kramer, who spent 35 years helping build and shape ERP solutions. He started in the 70s all the way through 2000, had his own business called Parasol Systems, had a solution for the chemical distributors and manufacturers called Prochem that automated their businesses. Although he hasn't been in the business from an ERP perspective because he's trying to enjoy the luxury of retirement, but he gets to hear a little bit through me. Welcome, Ron. How are you today? How we doing?
Fabulous.
Well,
Fabulous.
you
I'm
know,
so honored to be sitting here today with you.
fantastic. So, ERP has shaped a lot over the last 30, 40 years. I mean, it's always been out there. It's interesting, probably because when you started, it was the first generation. Many companies now there might be on their third or fourth or fifth, might have multiple ERP solutions. And I'll get into as I remember working for you and how I learned ERP. But your background, like how did you get into ERP? I know that you said, as we were talking the other day about being on the show, about how you learned COBOL and how that had an influence on you. But tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you got into ERP. Because when I talk about ERP to people, it's so complex. I feel like they don't understand anything except the features and capabilities. So you have to come in from the ground up to really understand what it is.
Yeah. Well, I took a COBOL course in college, and I was an accountant out of college. Um, I worked in accounting, then I joined a software company, service bureau, and I designed reports and met with clients, and I actually programmed the reports and defined the data that came in. Yeah, and that was pretty exciting. Um, I found very challenging, and I loved it. So that's
So,
how I kind of got into the computer industry.
right.
Yeah.
What made your way to ERP? And then what opportunity did you see that was potentially missing to be in it? Because it's not something that normally you'd want to get into unless you had that intellect from a mind perspective to understand the complexities of what ERP is to want to undertake that that task.
So there were a couple steps in my career, but I finally decided to go into my own business, and I did a number of small jobs with customers, and then finally realized that I needed more people. So I started hiring programmers and designers, and got a customer who was a paint and coatings manufacturer,
Mhm.
and he needed an ERP system, and he paid us to program an ERP system for him, and we did it from ground zero.
And this was the chemical solution that we're talking
This
about.
was a chemical, yeah, this was the chemical solution, and fortunately, the business was very sophisticated. They knew what they wanted, and they were just outstanding to work with.
So
And
within oh, go ahead, continue.
so when we designed it, we took the approach of having features and capabilities that were parameterized, so that our vision was that as new customers came on uh, in the chemical industry, and this was a very difficult industry because you're dealing with MSDSs, you're dealing with certificates of analysis, you're dealing with sophisticated inventory problems, work center demand, uh, re- complete requirements planning. So um, we felt very fortunate that we were able to work with this company.
So what's interesting is, so I worked for you probably 5 years after that, but I told my father that I was not going to work for him, that I wanted to do my own thing, as a young man thinking I could conquer anything, which I couldn't. So I went to Chicago. I came back. I said, "Can I work for you?" And he's like, "Sure." But I learned it from the ground up. So all these things that you're talking about, understanding the nuts and bolts, sitting in demo after demo, walking through manufacturing plants, understanding how they operate, and then learning from you as a mentor was like unbelievable. And you could see that what uniqueness and how chemical the industry was needing an ERP solution that was specific to that particular distribution and manufacturing clients. But we automated clients all over the country. It was mission critical, like you said, and they relied on it. And remember, you always saying that this was the differentiator for them. This was their competitive advantage. But do you think that those customers that you, I'm kind of deviating, do you think that those customers saw the solution as a system just was of a record, or something that automated their business to make them more of a competitor in the industry that they worked in, or all
Well,
above?
the latter, of course. Yeah, it was a tool that made them a sophisticated competitor, no question about it.
Yeah. So when you were working with those customers in the 80s and the 90s, what type of operational issues kept those executives awake at night? Because anybody that runs a business never sleeps really thoroughly, or because of the fact
Me
they're always
too.
thinking.
Yeah, me too.
Me as well. So I remember when I was growing up, I never could get up before noon, and now I can't sleep past 6 a.m. But anyway, so
Right.
what do you think kept them awake at night?
Well, yeah, you're talking about the chemical industry, the owners, and
Yep.
yeah.
What
So
operational
what kept them awake is uh, inventory problems. Uh, uh, the day-to-day customer issues are never kept them awake because those were more routine. But inventory problems, getting the merchandise, getting the raw materials that they needed uh, on time is a big deal. Work center demand was a big deal. Uh, and of course, employees and making sure their employees were trained, making sure they were spirited, and they were very much involved in their business.
you know I think it's a great answer, and you kind of keep on going and talk a little bit about. So there's obviously a tremendous value with the ERP solutions and the projects that are with them, and how they create just amazing value. But some of them like were really successful. I think kind of most of them, because we had a really strong implementation team. But at the same time, regardless of anything else, why were some of them, did they struggle? Like what was the difference between winning and losing, success, failure of some of these projects? Was it the leadership? Was it the people? Was it the processes? Was it change management? Was it mindset? Was it all the above? Or were they always successful because of your company?
Well, implementation is a very difficult process. You're dealing with personnel issues. You're dealing with the data, having the right data. Uh, you're dealing with the personnel understanding the system, going through a parallel system. We took a stance on that, and the implementation was critical. So we viewed it critically, meaning that a parallel system had to be processed, and it had to be processed by permanent employees. That meant they had to hire temporary employees to help run the old system. And the parallel system should run for probably 60 to 90 days. And if it's successful, then you cut off. But, there's a lot of data to be loaded because the old system did not have the information uh, to be able to run the new system. So they had to load it.
Mhm.
And they're loading it while they're running their company. So it's a challenge, and the senior management had to inspire employees every single day, and we had to inspire them. Our implementation team was phenomenal, and they were highly trained, and they were prepared to meet the challenges with the company, and they were on site. So we took it very serious.
I
As a
remember.
result, yeah, as a result, we were successful in the majority of cases. We had some failures, but in the majority, it was fine.
And I remember being on site for those. And it's the challenge is always every customer is not the same. The reason why the system, your system, became more complex, not that it was complex necessarily, but more features or more complexities, however you want to look at it, was because the customers wanted more there. You even had user groups. There's events that all the vendors have today that are similar to what you had, and it was the purpose of that was to bring the customers up to speed on the technology, at the same time learn from them on what they're doing or what they want you to do,
What
so
they
then
needed.
what they need, so the system could continually evolve. Okay. So today's market talks about automation, lots of that, and AI agents, analytics. Are these fundamental new ideas or simply the next chapter in the long evolution of ERP?
Yeah, I think it's the next chapter. The tools are new, uh, but the goals remain the same, and it'll help them to make better decisions and operate more effectively.
I agree. So if you were advising, a manufacturer distribution company on an ERP strategy today, where would you focus first and why? Because I'm not sure things have necessarily changed on what the scope is of what the the distribution companies and the manufacturing companies need. It still falls back on certain areas. What are those?
Yeah, I would tell them to analyze their business, analyze their data, and make sure their organization is aligned before they move into AI or into new technology.
Because it does seem like it's all about the processes. So, I was talking to some other people recently, and then we had a little bit of a chat. And you talk about, when the processes change with the new ERP solution, that changes the dynamic of that business. So if everybody's not aligned, then there's a problem with the implementation and that whole project. And it has to be everybody has to be on that same wavelength for the success to happen. So I think that's one of the things that you were good about is how do we make sure that we can't fail? What's the finish line look like, and work our way backwards to where we're at today to make sure this is done right? Because if it's not, it's going to be a big problem. Most of the time, a lot of these companies get excited about the newness of what they bought, like anybody does. But what happens is when you got to roll up your sleeves, that's a different story.
Yeah, yeah,
So
for sure. So I think it's all about understanding your business clearly, your present business, before you
Yep.
move to the next step.
Yep.
Understanding what data is required,
Yep.
what you don't have, and understanding clearly how you're going to get that data and how
Yeah.
you're going to train your employees and inspire them to uh, to the finish line.
Isn't it interesting how big of a deal data is? Because I used to call you a recovering accountant when I would introduce you because you said you were an accountant, right? Everybody wanted, whenever we did these presentations, everybody wanted to know what our, you know, I guess what our CV was and who we were. And I'd say I had my blah, blah, blah education. Here's a recovering accountant. We introduced a few other people who were very, knowledgeable and had a lot of credentials, et cetera. But back then it was about, closing the books, system of record. And today the data is more important because once those books are closed, we didn't really need the data necessarily, except for reports. Today, that data is such an integral part of AI and usability for that next generation of agentic AI, event-driven ERP. But I don't know, did you ever think it would be this far to use of the systems with AI when you started being in the business 40 years ago?
Uh, Probably not. I mean, uh, uh, I, uh, I, I had no idea that uh, ERP would become such a huge product, and I think part of it had to do with you.
Oh,
You're
that's
such a good salesperson, and you understood the message, and you were hustling, and you did a fabulous job,
well, that's
and
nice.
you kept our operation pretty busy.
Yeah, we closed a lot of deals and
Yeah,
we went to a lot of events just like people do today. I mean, when I go to these events and I see all
yeah,
the show floor and we had this big thing where we had to get the best carpet, right? Because it was so standing on your feet all day was hard, and we had to set it up, break it down, do this, do this. And it is a lot of work to run those show floors. And we did all that. And we attended a lot of the events. So this, I feel like what we did back then was the same as they're doing now. There's just more competitors, more technology, more demand from the customers on the vendors, but the outcome is essentially the same that is required. And one of the things I try and tell customers is, use as much of the system as you can, because of the fact that it fully automates your company. And if you're going to use just part of it, then someone's got to do the other one, whether it's manual or bringing in another, software system that you have to manage. And of course, that could be very efficient for you if it's done right. But the systems were meant to run everything in your business if it's possible.
right.
But after 40 or more years of being around ERP, what lessons remain just as relevant for you? Because I said me today as they were potentially when you founded Parasol Systems.
Look at there. You sit in a demo, everything looks great. You see the advantages in the demo of why you should buy that software. So now you have to make a decision. Uh, the price is $1 million or more, and you have to figure out uh,
Millions.
millions, yeah, and you have to figure out the transition. What data you must load, what
Or migrate. There's migration paths now
what
with
data you must convert, right? Uh, how do you train your employees? Uh, Completely document the entire implementation system clearly so that everybody knows what's expected of them. Train them thoroughly. Make sure your staff is has bought in completely, 100%, and then move forward. And if you're not willing to do that, and be willing to, yourself work 20 hours a day or more uh, to get this done. This is your business,
Yeah.
and your business has to operate while your business is converting, and it's a very difficult process. And realize that and buy in 100%.
You said about the processes and the data and the commitment and the user adoption. I mean, those are all critical to the success. But when companies are moving from an older system to a newer system, pretty substantial, pretty substantial move there. But at the same time, most likely the master files aren't going to match up. There's going to be more in the new one. Your processes are going to change. Your data might not be as good as you think. So there's a lot of work there. But we had such a nice time. Um, I remember my first couple months there. I used to, you had a lot of people working for you. I would come in your office to see what's going on. Just wanted to be part of the gang. And I was probably 23. And I said, just asking what I could do. You're like, go get me a cup of coffee. I'm like, I love that. I'm like, okay, we're going to start at the bottom here, figure out how I could make a difference. But it was made, and we were very successful together, and it was wonderful. Well, thank you for being on the show. And I think that this is great. A lot of people will learn from you being here. And thanks a lot, Dad. Thank you.
My pleasure.